Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to read to you and talk to you about Tribelight Station, in fact. I have a weblog called Tribelight Station, and as I explain on the blog, I named it that because of what I'm going to be reading to you here. And the Tribelight Station blog has information and posts on things that relate to the state of our world, the negative, the positive energies that are always in flux and oppositional to one another. But I try on that blog to hold it to the highest light. So we look at it, we see it for what it is, but we move to the highest calibration of where our power lies in creating a light field around and within it all. But here I'm going to be discussing the actual Tribelight Station. Now, when I received information on this, in 1981, of course, we didn't have on the internet shows you could watch, music you could stream, all of that. But they were talking to me about an actual station that streamed integrative frequency signals into the field where the brain goes, where the brain mind goes in dream time. Understand that when we dream, and indeed also when we're moving into a higher state of just, meditational, visional experience, where visions or sensations and feelings, thoughts that move into our mind in a high meditative state, but also when we dream. And there is an actual field, a vibrational bandwidth, shall we say, that we contact around this earth when we go into that state. So the Tribelight Station was a signal that moves into that bandwidth and is not attempting in any way to manipulate us or to give us thoughts or impressions that aren't our own. By our own, I mean that aren't a part of who we are and what we express as a divine being. None of that. But what it does do is it seeds that bandwidth with high-level consciousness. I won't even say information, but consciousness. And when we go into the dream time, if we are in that field of reference, we will be elevated to a higher frequency of receipt. Now, what about people that are, they're dreaming, but, they're not very aware, or perhaps they're even connecting themselves and choosing to digress into very dark places. Obviously, their dreams are going to be connected to this bandwidth we're speaking of. So I need to correct myself and not say everyone's dreams. But if they can at all touch, if they can at all feel that bandwidth in any tiny, tiny little bit, they will be able to access this consciousness frequency that will uplift them depending upon their ability to connect to it. So unfortunately, the bandwidth can't reach down into the depths of darkness to retrieve souls, but it can say, here I am. Just reach up just a little bit higher, and you can receive from me. And just think of the mindset, basically, in 1981, in understanding frequencies, modalities, and even technology that allowed one to stream information, music, videos, movies, things of that nature, compared to then. So a lot of what Thoth was telling me about, or I was receiving from the Thoth Akasha at that time, is very relevant now. And at that time, it was just not, there was nothing to compare it to. Now, Tribelight, the whole Tribelight Station is about lifting people out of the despair, the darkness, into light. If they can just, but with one tiny little touch, access this frequency bandwidth in their dreams and meditations. Of course, if they're meditating, they obviously can't. But dreams, that's, a given. I mean, it's not a given. It is not a given because it depends upon where the soul is in their incarnational experience. But a lot of people on this planet, most people on this planet, are accessing to some degree that state of frequency, of dream state, in which Tribelight can touch to some extent. So what I'm going to be reading to you was written by me that long ago, and my wording was different then in some ways, especially in some topics, especially when I was translating from either Thoth or his scribe, who I haven't even heard from in all these years, but his scribe was Cyrus Him. Excuse me. When we're talking about a scribe here, we aren't talking about pen and ink, of course, but we are talking about someone who interprets for him. And why he had an interpreter at that time? Well, originally it was because I was could not really access him fully. But by this time, by 1981, that was back in 1977, I could access him, but still the scribe would occasionally come through. And I'm not exactly sure why. And then finally, he didn't come through at all. So we start with what I'm reading to you here from issue 1, 1982 of The Source. On December 7th, 1981, the Tibetan Egyptian Tribunal of the Inner Sanctum, and this is spelled, the name he's giving me is INAUX, that's one word, BA, second word. Third part of the name is IIGHIUS, and the last is SCANTORI, of the Illumined Order of Central Earth. Now, this is addressing the inner earth and the civilizations, the human beings that live within our planet. So I'm going to have to pause again for a moment and explain just briefly that the inner earth or the inner part of any true planet is hollow. However, as you move toward the center of that field of what Thoth calls the atoma of the planet, the central sun, the magnetic energies change. And as they change, the dimension shifts, not in a complete shift from one complete dimension to another. But Thoth speaks about these in-between shifts, these little off-center shifts that are still a dimensional shift, but not a full cycle of a shift. And that's the kind of dimensional shift we have here in Crestone in regard to the sacred awn inside the crest in the stone mountain and all the things, the treasures or whatever that inside Mount Blanca and all of this. They are these slight off shift vibrational shifts. And they're off shifted here for a different reason, but it still has to do with magnetic energy. But it's not, of course, the central sun. So, but if we go back to the hollow of the planet, when we're speaking of the beings that live there, they're slightly dimensionally shifted from our reality, but they're still very much a part of the earthen sphere. We don't realize how often we shift dimensions just slightly in our day-to-day lives. Thoth indicates that just walking from one side of the living room to the other, you're shifting just micro units in dimension. Because you're moving through a dimension. You're moving through one dimension as you walk from one side of the living room to the other, but nevertheless, you are shifting just slightly. All right, so that's my brief lesson on dimensional shifts and inner earth in that regard. So when we have people inside the earth, there's a whole civilization down there, in there, but it's shifted just slightly from this dimension. So bearing that in mind, I'm going to continue to read again. I'm going to start with December 7th, 1981, the Tibetan Egyptian Tribunal of the Inner Sanctum of the Illumined Order of Central Earth was reestablished beneath the Potala, the lamasery of the Dalai Lama at Lhasa, Tibet. Now, again, I have to pause. I'm sorry, but there's a lot of pauses, but there's just so much that you need to know now in 2019 about what I've written here in 1982. I had a really powerful dream, and I don't believe I've written about it here, but of being underneath the Potala. And there are all kinds of chambers and catacombs, and it goes deeper and deeper and deeper. So this is what we're speaking about. Called the IBIS, I-B-I-S, this tribunal has not been stationed in its rightful chambers of the subterranean portion of Potala for 5,000 years. Now, meaning 1982, because of certain planetary frequency changes, it is once again the viable seat of the IBIS power. And now I quote from a message received by me on November 19th, 1981. I, scribe of Hermes, that's Thoth, I used to call him Hermes in those days, and proconsul of the same, Osiris Hem, doth record for thine eyes the identification of the Anuks Ba Ignatus Sanctori. Again, in these days, sometimes when I received information from Thoth or his scribe, it was all in these and thous and doths and whatever, whether it's in my brain or that's the way they were coming through, I don't know. It even irritated me at the time because it was a little difficult to understand all this biblical stuff, but that's the way it came through. What can I say? So I'm just going to read it that way, and eventually that changed. The Tribunal Ibis is the highest court of the illumined governing the planet Earth from a physical station in Earth. Certain edicts are given from this station concerning both inner and outer worlds of the planet, which are made law. These edicts are sounded upon the backbone of the material world and are authorized by the throne of the inner sanctum of the illumined. The pure star sun, Solaria, races of the ancient Tibetan and Egyptian genetic lineages sit upon the tribunal. This is so enacted because of the race karma of these lineages, which deems them empowered to hold these seats. It is the Ibis that is given authority to pass sentence upon the sons of fallen light who vagrant themselves upon the earth. The Ibis also serves as protectorate of the law they dictate. They are enforcers as well as enactors. The tribunal meets at appointed times. However, the station is kept constant by officials, guardians, emissaries, and others whose duties constitute the maintenance of the station. The enforcers of the law are known as the Ibis Elexus, who have gone forth to accomplish their service upon the planet. Now with and they give this, they say Prince Raziel. So I don't know about this prince business. I don't know. I'm very skeptical when they start saying the queen of this or the prince of that, anybody's material, other channels, and so I'm skeptical of my own. So I don't know what this prince is. But anyway, now with the Prince Rael received into the inner sanctum upon the most holy throne of the illumined, the power is with delighted ones to return critical edicts upon the world of the conquered mind, that means the surface earth, You shall see these things take place, yet your eyes will not recognize them in their total sight, although you shall know them by what has been told you here. The mighty powers of the four pillars of earth shall be shaken to their roots. Behold, the evildoers shall not destroy what has been raised by the hand of light. They shall be decimated and vanquished to the end. Well, I read this now from another vantage point, and I see things now more that, transforming energies rather than vanquishing and decimating them. How much my own mind influenced the wording of this particular missive, certainly is up to question. However, by the same token, on the other side of the coin, let's say, when we're speaking about evil ones, they're not speaking about physical persons or even souls so much as they're talking about the energies that are invested within them that are of an archonic nature. And if you look at it from that point of view, which is very possibly how this was given, then I can more or less accept this vanquished and decimated business. So we'll leave that for, each individual to decide. But I'm just reading you what I wrote in 1981, what I received in 1981, and how I interpreted it. Even then, I have this little disclaimer down here written at that time. I once again wish to remind the readers that messages given directly from illumined personages, such as Thoth and Osiris Hem, are waxed in ancient and symbolic flair. So and so, whatever. Anyway, so it shows you I was having problems with it even then. So now, to continue with the reading, we will not see, as a result of the relocation of the ibis, the rendering of complete justice on this planet in the wink of an eye. What is taking place through this channel is the staying of extraneous evil forces that are ever increasingly interpolating their dark powers with the earth's common karma. Our karmas must be played or released through grace. The ibis is a portion of the extended hand of grace, endowed with the powers to keep a balance of dark and light forces in our world. To an extent, the tribunal has governed this action, empowered by the greater eminences of the hierarchies of living lights in the universe, many centuries in time. But for 5,000 years, their service has been drained from the major part of its duties. The full authority could not be enacted unless the geocosmic alignment of the station of the ibis was within the secret chambers of the Potala. So here what it's really saying is, it's about sacred geometry. And we decide the misalignments of our planet through our collective karmas. And when we get things back in order again, to some extent, at least in this particular, with the Potala and the area involved, they could return to that seat of power because they were interacting with the earth grid there and how it is stationed in the sacred geometry of that. To continue, there is a second but equally critical engagement of energies initiated by the ibis now that it has been received back into its original post. The ibis is referred to as a station of tribunal conduct. It has also become a frequency station, much like a cosmic radio, in that it sends a signal beam, what we would call now streaming, around the planet. This station is given the title of Tribelight. Well, it's given that to me. I don't know that they call it that. There has never been a project like it before, although it employs ancient principles. For those attuning themselves to this frequency, receipt of higher consciousness programs of knowledge not previously accessible to them will now be possible. In order for this to be accomplished, the Earth grid had to be attuned to a new scan pitch, utilizing various energy quanta from the crystalline field of this planet, which had not, in known history, been activated. Tribelight reprocesses and distributes to this earth the 10 lost Pura codes, which have not been obtainable in this world sphere for eons. The symbol for this transformation, both for Tribelight and the judicial service of Ibis, is the female polarity of Thoth Hermes, Iris, the goddess Iris. You can look her up, she's Greek, wearing the winged helmet of the Sky Clan. The major hierarchy governing these interrelated projects is Sagittarius, balanced by Virgo and Libra. As seeking individuals, you may attune yourselves to this frequency station to increase your knowledge spectrum and, more importantly, to aid in the emancipation of Earth from the dark forces. First, you need to comprehend the scientific basis for Tribelight. To quote from issue 380 of the source. Whoops, my kitty is playing with things. I'm sorry. I'm going to turn a page. Okay, so this is quoting from issue 180, 1980. There is a solar magnetic shell, and a lunar magnetic shell enveloping the entire planet. These shells remain in place as the Earth rotates underneath. The center of each current, solar or lunar, positive or negative, is termed the focus and is the stillest area of current. It has a diameter of, practically speaking, 350 miles at certain times of the year as the four corners passes under the focus of the clockwise solar current. Ancient Tibet, which is in the opposite to it on the northern hemisphere, is passing under the counterclockwise solar current. 12 hours later, the experience of the effects is reversed for the two land masses. I'm going to have to take care of this kitty business. Just a moment. Sorry about that. Okay, so I was reading about this. I'm going to start again on this because the lunar shells things because I was distracted. There is a solar magnetic shell and a lunar magnetic shell enveloping the entire planet. These shells remain in place as the Earth rotates underneath. The center of each current, solar or lunar, positive or negative, is termed the focus and is the stillest area of current. It has a diameter of, practically speaking, 350 miles at certain times of the year as the four corners passes under the focus of the clockwise solar current. Ancient Tibet, which is opposite to the northern hemisphere, is passing under the counterclockwise solar current. 12 hours later, the experience of the effects is reversed for the two land masses. While four corners passes slowly under the focus of a clockwise lunar current, Tibet is also experiencing a clockwise lunar current. Simultaneously, Holy Jerusalem, the Pyramid of Giza, and the sacred breathing mountains of Hawaii are experiencing the focus of the counterclockwise lunar currents. Now, this particular quote from my source is, just a moment. This is actual geological information that I found somewhere, and I quoted it in my issue. So this is not channeled information from me. This is something out of some text somewhere. You know, you could look it up. I guess you could probably Google it in these days. But it fit perfectly with what Thoth had been telling me out of this issue that I'm quoting from, which we're not going to go into here. So that's the reason I went, oh my gosh, I found it and I quoted it because of its synchronicity with what Thoth was telling me about something. Sorry, I have to stop again. One cat found a box that was sealed closed. That cat explored it and left, and then another cat wanted to go in. So now I have chased them all out of the room, terrified them to death. So maybe we can go back to our lunar and solar magnetic shells. Okay. So that ends all that quote. Okay, now I'm coming back to issue 182, where I'm trying to discuss Tribelight. Translated into electrical extremely low frequencies, ELF, the interactions between the Earth's, no. This is still from 1980, and I'm still talking about the currents, but I'm not quoting it. I'm going into my own information. I believe, it's written so long ago, it's really hard to sort all this out. But I think this is how it is. So here we go. Translated into electrical extremely low frequencies, ELF, the interactions between the Earth's crystallic and the solar lunar shells channel the lunar emanations into alternating current AC and the solar radiations into direct current DC. A current of 160 AC and 220 DC combines in strength to a total output of 380, numerically similar to the 350-mile focus of the lunar and solar shells. Now, I know this is not mine. This is still quoting from somebody. In terms of the light math, now it's mine. In terms of the light mathematics comprehended by ultra and inner Earth scientists, the current output of the lunar shell as it interacts with the Earth's crystallic grid is, now this is mine, 88801.01 of a metacycle or oscillatory rate of atomic matter as it transmigrates into the composition of light matter. Light matter is the third state of matter, matter and antimatter preceding it. The solar current is 10,000.01 of a metacycline current. The combined lunar and solar current is 98801.02, which equates in exact milliunits to the radius of the solar and lunar foci. So the information that I received about the solar and lunar magnetic shells, the AC, DC, all of that, I'm talking about that first, and then I'm saying how this relates to what I received from the Thothic record about the light mathematics and the lunar shell and all of that. Okay, so now, the planet Earth could be viewed as a multifaceted crystal, hollow at the center, with etherically charged particles of crystalline conformity present in the inner atmosphere. And this is referring to the ice canopy, which I mentioned in 381 of the source. This planet is in the process of altering its energy properties, beginning with the magnetic field maintained essentially by the natural crystallic grid. A condition of pyoelectricity is being induced by both subtle, continuous, and not so subtle, discontinuous temperature changes. A definition for pyoelectricity is the simultaneous development of positive and negative charges of electricity at opposite ends of a crystal axis under the proper conditions of temperature change. Now that is a definition that I have a quote around it. So I got it from a dictionary, the definition of pyoelectricity. Now I'm going back to me in Thoth. The lunar and solar shells creating their charges upon the Earth poles are regulated by the temperatures they encounter within the planetary ecosystem. Thus, there was a window opened that allowed for a circuitry enhancement that had not previously been viable. Lack of space in this issue prevents me from detailing this procedure, but as a pyroelectric effect created different charge between interactions between the lunar and solar shells of the Earth, the tremendous power of these shells was tapped by the ultra and interterrestrial geoscientists, creating a boosting signal for Tribelight's inception. This frequency power is equal to the solar lunar shadow or focus of the Earth of 98801.02, the combined power of the lunar and solar output. As we have discussed in previous issues of the source, there are many different crystal sources present in and on the Earth, both natural and man-made. Ultra and interterrestrial thought crystals exist in various services throughout the planet, linked to the natural crystalline grid of the Earth. In issue 41981, a description of the recent constructed Orkes-Tau crystal pyramid beneath the Ute Mountain. At the time, I was living at the Four Corners area in Crestone, Colorado, or near the Four Corners. In Ute Mountain, I was sent there by the ultras to work with the Mesa Verde Plateau and all kinds of just fun stuff. And the Ute Mountain was right there, and indeed it was right out my window, just like Creston the Stone is here. So back to this, I say in issue 4, 1981, a description of the recently constructed Orkestau crystal pyramid beneath Ute Mountain in the Four Corners region was given, as well as details of its energy function and purpose. Additionally, it is now serving as a transducer for the transmitting crystal unit of Tribelight in Lhasa, Tibet. The OT pyramid is the medial transducing node of Tribelight for the North American continent. A crystal unit in the caverns beneath Lake Titicaca, Peru, Bolivia, acts as a transducer for South America. The Pyramid of Giza is a major transducer for Tribelight. There are several thought-form crystals being employed in this capacity on all parts of the globe, creating total coverage of the planet. So you know what we could see this like? Like cell towers. No, not cell towers in the destructive, horrible, whatever the microwaves they're sending out, but just as we're talking about good cell towers, ones that emit positive energies. So we could see these transducers as cell towers, so that we have the capacity on all parts of the globe, creating total coverage of the planet. I mean, this is what this is. It's a good form of cell towers. Okay. The interrelation between Tibet and Four Corners is evidenced in the fact that the Hopi Indians of the Four Corners region, word for moon is the Tibetan word for sun, and the Hopi word for sun is the Tibetan word for moon. The 10 lost piracotes are vectors of hierarchical transmission, impulses of thought energies encoded in frames or units of ultra-color sound. These vectors are pyramidic in function, having been transmitted from the stellar hierarchies through the pure radial gate, a spectral division of classes of thought program, bits or exgrams. And then it says see issues 4, 1980 and 3, 1981. Do you understand all of that? The 10 mentioned here are those piracodes which we have lost through disservice to the light. The frequency station, Tribelight, is serving as a synapse between the Earth's present energy state capability and the generative frequencies of the 10 lost piracodes. This does not cause a total uniting of the geocosmic Earth and the 10, but it does create access to the 10 by individual sentient minds of Earth. The Penguin Dictionary of Science. In those days I couldn't say, this website or that. I have to go to books. I had to look them up in books. Oh, I can't believe I lived that long ago. Anyway, the Penguin Dictionary of Science defines amplitude modulation, AM, as, quote, the principal method of transmitting information by radio waves. The amplitude of a carrier wave is modulated in accordance with the frequency of the signal to be transmitted, unquote. In the same dictionary, frequency modulation, FM, is given this explanation, quote, the type of radio transmission system in which the frequency of a carrier wave is modulated rather than its amplitude, provides a method of transmission free from static interference, unquote. So I say the AM transmission follows the curve of the Earth and thus picks up interference noise. The FM broadcasting takes a higher path, free from most static, but can only be received as far as the horizon. Obviously, I got all of that out of the Penguin Dictionary. So now, the frequency station of Tribelight is received by the brain-mind complex, but it is nevertheless a frequency that can be monitored by highly developed crystal units as well. The modulation of this frequency is trinitized, meaning that it develops its field of reception through a three-dimensional utility. Trinitized modulation, TM, is grown like a crystal by the increase of its velocity as it junctures at the points of its triangular vector. In order to trinitize a modulating signal, an artificial magnetic field of ultramagnetics must be created. This field is constructed in the geometrics of a triangle, which when carried to its dimensional capacity becomes a tetrahedron or pyramid. As the modulating signal is encapsulated in the Pura vector, for each completion of a cycle, one layer of the trinity of energies is completed. The complex logistics of this principle is beyond the summit of our present topic. The main understanding that need be derived from this brief essay on trinitizing modulated signals is that such TM transmissions operate dimensionally and thus holographically, enabling the brain-mind couples to assimilate these frequencies in their purest state beyond our common learning references. I was calling it holonomic then, but I'm going to call it holographic now because I think it's a better word. For further understanding of the holographic nature of the brain, see issue 1, 1981 of the Source, segment on dolphins. So, I'm going to have to turn a page again, everyone, and take a sip of water. Tribelight will benefit the world on a subliminal level by touching the minds of those lifted in prayer and meditation, aiding them in receipt of a greater understanding. Yet the progress made in illumination will depend on the basic desire for enlightenment of the individual. It's also in dream state, and I knew that at the time, so I don't know why I didn't put that in there. Maybe because it's not everybody that dreams is touching it unless they are in some kind, at least some kind of a spiritual rapport with him. And that means they're not just really down in the dark. So anyway, to continue. Yet the progress made in illumination will depend on the basic desire for enlightenment of the individual. For those who are aware of Tribelight and its purpose in this domain, we can more astutely utilize this frequency station. The greatest measure should be given to strengthen the frequency so that it can better serve those unaware of its existence. Through Tribelight, both awareness and law are issued from its streaming. Awareness is the fulfillment of law and the staying of all evil. By injecting our prayers for its success and power into that current, we can effect an increasing stamina for this cause. Such a directive should not be subjective, but the addressing of the world situation as a whole. An example would be not to inject the desire about one particular thing. I'm talking about things in that time, but that this has to happen, like we have to, I'm going to say that Trump has to be, impeached, or pollution has to be erased from the planet, or things of that nature. You're not going into specifics. That's what it's talking about here. The project should be rather that the world as a whole receive the spirito-physical balance intended by the divine stewards of our homogeneity. Well, that's big words, but what I meant was basically you turn it over to God, but you say, I am giving this presence of spirit in my being that the wholeness of the world, the earth, and you could even say moving toward divine ascension, because that is certainly holistic form, be achieved on this planet. And I place this into the streaming frequency of the Tribelight Station of light. For personal receipt from Tribelight, the peak emission hours are sunrise, 12 o'clock noon, sunset, 12 o'clock midnight, regardless of time zone. Tribelight is a constant frequency, but these are the hours in which its amplitude is peaked. To pray and meditate for the success and strengthening of Tribelight, it would be most effective for a group of people to do so at the same time. These are the time zone coordinates, then, to lock into Tribelight for the purpose of maintaining the strength of the station. 6 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Central Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, obviously, this doesn't follow time changes exactly. It doesn't seem to, because, you know, we have different time zones change time and they're opposite each other and whatever. Because in Mountain Time, 8 p.m., well, let's see, I have to go back on this again. 6 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Yeah, that would work. Central Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Yeah, that would work. I'm not good at numbers, folks. But anyway, yes, that works. I was trying to figure it out. Try to attune to the Tribelight once a night for 5 to 10 minutes and give your thought prayers the trinitized modulation for the uplifting of awareness and the instigation of divine law on the planet at the appointed group session time given above. Okay, let's take a look at this now. From our standpoint now, even if you gave it 3 minutes a night, just personally, without linking to any group, that would be good. However, you know, if you wanted to, as a group of people, agree on a time that you were going to do this, that would be even more potent. And if you did that, probably the staying time of 5 minutes would be better. If you're doing it alone and receiving 3 minutes, you'd think it would be more if you're doing it alone, but that doesn't seem to be what I'm receiving. And certainly you can do more than what I'm giving you, but I'm saying the least amount. But if you're doing it as a group effort, 5 should be given. And so the saying because it takes time to connect the mindset, the group energy first before it moves into it. And what I'm thinking I want to do is I want to do a short video that helps to advance this energy form in some way. I haven't figured that out yet, but I think that's something I'm going to do. So to continue with what I'm reading here, if you wish a visualization for this purpose, oh goody, I have a visualization. So I will read it here, but then what I'll do is I'll make one of my nifty little, videos that connects you to the spirit of the thing. So I'll read it to you here, but then I'll go and make one that's separate so you don't have to go through this whole long video. You can just use it whenever you want to. But for now, we're going to read it. See the lofty Himalayan mountains, silver-tongued in the voice of the crystal wind, echoing ancient prophecy, past enchantment. Hear the depths of the brass drum call from the rising breath of Lhasa. Listen to the clear promise of light, charging the air from the clappers of distant bells. Let the image of the massive Potala bleed onto the canvas of your mind. Like a high priestess, it entrenches skirts of stone upon the throne of the world. All her surroundings appear barren against the beauty of her chaste form. Priests have prostrated themselves at the altar of her wisdom. Princes have stolen from her sepulchres. The poor have found solace in her endurance. The rich have envied her treasure that no man may diminish. The great and glorious guardian is she. From the fathom of her catacombs, picture as a translucent light, a beam sent forth into the sky. The configuration this light seeks, I don't know, I've messed this up here, so I don't know what it's saying. The lines of a bird in flight, with streaming golden cords travailing behind it. As the bird light encircles the sphere, these cords become rings of vibrating glory, sheltering, nourishing, protecting the planet. Each ring is a color of the hidden rainbow. There are 10 rings and 10 colors: red, magenta, orange, yellow, saffron, green, blue, violet, indigo, and pink. Envision your soul as a dove with pearl clasped in beak, gliding through the radiances of colors to place into the beak of the divine bird of light, your pearl of wisdom. Feel the harmony of love in the sacred act of giving. In those quiet times when you wish to receive from Tribelight in a personal way, repeat this visualization with a reversal of the ending. See the divine bird giving your dove, so the pearl. You may use any light imaging you desire for these experiences. The above is only a suggestion. Whenever in need of a shield of protection, you may wish to visualize the helmet-winged iris, as this image is a seal of divine law and protection. So I will correct that sentence that I wasn't sure of, and I will do this in a manner that you can just use a short video to help connect you for a while. To continue reading, this is a quote from Science Digest, February 1982. Observations have shown that every 14 months or so, the position of the Earth's axis has shifted. This mysterious wobble can vary anything from 16 to 33 feet in any direction. It puzzles scientists because it changes in severity from one cycle to the next, suggesting that the Earth does not behave entirely as a solid body. Well, it isn't entirely as a solid body because it has a hollow core. However, because the hollow core is intra-dimensional, there would be a difference in that frequency changing in the wobbles. You know, it all ties into a very interesting mix. Let's just put it that way. And then, what am I reading here? Let me just see what this is. Okay, the next thing I'm quoting from, this is another quote from The Lion and the Cross by Joan Leslie Hamilton, a historically based novel on the young life of St. Patrick. It has been said that we are as seeds cast down into a benighted forest, knowing darkness, ignorant of our dependence upon the light. We are children of the earth, sending out our roots instinctively through the black loam, holding fast to what we know, reaching for nourishment within it. Above us, the great green living crowns of trees draw into themselves the sustenance of light. Below, untouched by sun or warmth, reacting to a need which is born in all of us, we begin to reach, to strain upward, twisting in blind aspiration toward an existence yet to be defined or even fully conceived. And when at last the light is found, often it is shaded, and the seedlings, weary, pause in their growth. Some, by their own choosing, will no longer seek, no longer reach. The dark loam of life will be enough for them. Soon they begin to fade away and fall away into, soon they begin to fade and fall away into their own shadows. Time will incorporate them back into the earth, but it shall be as though they had never been. But the others are not content with loam and darkness. Something still throbs within them, pulsing, reminding of dimensions yet unseen, unfelt, yet surely promised. They continue their growth upward, out of the shadows, until at last the shadows fall behind. The light of life swells within them, nourishing them so that they may stand tall and strong against the storm, the wind and storm, children of both earth and sky, still reaching, ever reaching, knowing that their purpose is yet to be fulfilled. I was still a child of earth, shadowed by my doubts, harnessed by my memories of my own failures, bitter with the resentment against the clouds which had risen to obliterate the light of faith within me. That is certainly beautiful. And again, that is from The Lion and the Cross by Joan Leslie Hamilton, a historically based novel on the young life of St. Patrick. And according to Thoth, St. Patrick was, if I remember correctly, the grandson of Merlin. And he's gotten a really bad rap of late, that Patrick was this awful person that killed all these people in Ireland, all this stuff. According to Thoth, that is not true. So that's all I can tell you. But that is certainly a beautiful passage. So turning page again. When minds are cast into the inner horizon of the Earth sphere, attention is often dominated by the thought of hell's inferno, the molten slag of human corruption, Dante's egress from the preserved to the perished. We tend to associate down with evil and up with sainthood. Yet there are few of us who would not agree, when given pause for thought, that in the infinite to which our souls are committed, there is no physical direction that is not relative to the whim of the viewer. By the way, this is me again. The heart is in the center of man. While an organ of essential function to biological life, it is also the chakra of spiritual conception. The sacred atoma of the earth, the central sun of the planet, is like unto the atoma of humankind. Both serve as the divine focus for the respective mass. And now I'm going to quote to you from my own source issue of 1980, in which I said, the inner terrestrial humans addressed by the source, that's my periodical, are the central earth cultures of Subterranea and not associated with or in any way related to the de-energizing forms which manifest into subhuman biosystems within pockets of mal-generated energy node anomalies of this planet. This type of energy warped phenomena is independent of and not in harmony with the ensouled and spiritualized humanity on or within the earth. It is not within the projected scope of the source to delve into such digressive latitudes. We act solely as a channel for the heritage of one, the collective cultures of the tribes within the central domain of Earth, who carry within their genes a cosmic mixture of Earth and other planetary origins. And so back to issue 1982, I'm saying, because of so much concentration given to the negative aspect of inner cavern habitation, I wish to break with this policy for a moment only in order to clarify the balance of good and evil that exists within this living globe. Much of the material written about the hollow earth, whether it be lore, true experiences, or channeled information, deals almost exclusively with negativity. Well, that was in that period, okay? I think they've done a lot better as of late, but in 1980s and whatever, 70s, 50s, it was all these horrible beings that were coming out of the center of the earth, and which was not true. They were coming out of certain de-energized pockets in the cavern areas. So anyway, much of the material written about, yeah, I said that. This is perhaps due to our fear of depth, darkness, and the unknown. In the reality which I perceive as a channel for the Central Earth tribes, less than 5% of the energies directly manifest in and from the inner layers of the Earth is of a digressive nature. Indeed, there's no negative or evil energy within the actual central hollow. When I say there's no negative, I don't mean that everybody's perfect in the inner earth, but there's nothing like we have up here. Believe me, it's so little, it's just insignificant. And there's nothing that, you know, is harsh or cruel or inhumane or anything like that. There is the occasional interloper of a less than spiritual type of dwarf that sometimes manages to reach the hollow, but they are unable to stay more than a few hours at a time and are generally harmless, although they do not have a proclivity. They do have a proclivity for meat eating, which lends to them to steal a lamb or fawn if they can. Well, we're getting into mere details. The inner earth energies of retrograde action come from isolated pockets, most of which are nearer the surface of the planet than its core. Astral entities latch onto the strong magnetic configurations present in some of the more primal vortices still trapped in the earth. By concentrating their energies in these areas, they can sometimes create subhuman types for their purposes. As fiendish a scenario, excuse me, I have a sticky on top of this and I can't read it, and it's all glued to the page. Let me get it off here. As what did I say here? As fiendish as the scenario as may be conjured for this knowledge, there are only fractions of the entire planet's sentience. Of greater threat are the arch enemies of the shepherd the beasts that prowl in power-seeking strides along our sunlit valleys. Often assuming the posture of righteousness, they attempt to decimate the structure of our very minds in the way we think and feel toward one another and inwardly toward ourselves. And that was back in 1980. Think of what it is now. Astral evils are infants of this destructive consciousness, not the perpetrators of it. Souls of chaos will enter worlds and do their deeds as dark children of a tempest night, but the arising wings of victory always come with the dawn. It is unwise and even dangerous to delve too deeply into the thought frames of these evildoers, for in opening the door of your mind to contemplate their boundaries, so you give them the space of your thoughts, in which they may extend those terrible parameters of violation in the manifestation of fear and delusion. Blindness is not advocated in these words, for ignorance is never a justifiable response to the portents of the future. We must come in all things to be aware of darkness without becoming entangled in the fibers of its cloak. To live in light is to diminish the darkness by placing it into perspective. The shufflings of subhuman forms groping in a self-inflicted absence of light is a pitiful reminder of the torments that can be created in the mind when a soul becomes separated from its spawning stream, from the light womb of its sacred birthing. Let us rejoice in our brethren of the light, within, upon, above, or simultaneous to this earth. Excuse me, another sip of water. Our kindred flames who will not desert the reaching hand or the searching mind. Let us come to know them in their own understanding and find the golden thread that weaves their garments of illumination. There need be no distance between us, no dark images eclipsing the face of the sun that awaits us. The garden is ours, pressed dearly to our bosoms, if we but recognize the wellspring that is harbored in the earth. And now I am ending this whole issue, I think. Let's see. Yes, I'm ending the whole issue with the statement. 1982 marks the centennial birthday of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, a Blue-ray Solarian. In other words, his soul comes from the Blue Star Rigel. And I'm going to read this quote, but I just want to make this statement because it's kind of a bee in my bonnet. As of late, with all the conspiracy things, many of which are true and many of which are not, and some of which are completely mixed and, mixed with truth and not truth. But in all of this mix, lately there's this, thing about, well, FDR was in on, creating World War II, and he let Pearl Harbor happen or even helped orchestrate it, and all of this. This is simply and totally not true. He was a defender of light. Sure, he was a human being, but he did not invoke any of this, have anything to do with it. And in fact, I've read many, many of his biographies, and I'm not talking about modern ones. I even read a book that was written, probably out of print now, by his then secretary. He was the first female, not only secretary, not secretary, I don't mean secretary, I mean Secretary of State or something like that. I can't remember exactly what she was. But it was unheard of for a woman to be in that position then, and she was. And she was present in the room when he received the telegram that told him that Pearl Harbor had been attacked. And she saw him just practically fall apart. And this was not a man that fell apart. He was shocked, he was stunned, his hand was shaking, tears came to his eyes. And I don't just base everything on that. I base it also on Thoth and his information about him being a Blue Star Solarian and the good that this man accomplished in his lifetime. But anyway, I'm on my pulpit now because I do not like those insinuendos and even outright falsities that he was involved in, creating Pearl Harbor, the event Pearl Harbor. Okay, so now I will relax and I will read you what I wrote here. This is a quote. In the era of World War II, when the hot breath of Hitler's Nazi wrath, I'm saying this here, when the hot breath of Nazi wrath tainted the world's nation with formidable civility, President Roosevelt spoke these words to the people of the earth. Now the quote starts. I take heart in remembering that in a similar time, Isaiah first prophesied the birth of Christ. Then, several centuries before his coming, the condition of the world was not unlike that which we see today. Then as now, a conflagration had been set, and nations walked dangerously in the light of fires that they themselves had kindled. But in that very moment, a spiritual rebirth was foreseen, a new day which was to loose the captives and then consume the conquerors in the fire of their own kindling. And those who had taken a sword were to perish by the sword. There was promised a new age wherein, through renewed faith and upward progress, the human race would be more secure. And that particular quote I took from Corinne Helene's New Age Bible Interpretation, Old Testament, Volume 3. And so that ends the old stuff, but I'm going to talk about the new stuff now. I could make it on another video, but I think not. I'm just going to go ahead because it's not going to take long. I am going to pause the video for just a moment, though. Well, I'm just winging it here with what I'm receiving in the moment from Thoth. Nothing written down, no talking points or anything. I'm just going for it. We'll see what happens. First of all, I was very much guided to bring this forward now. And as many of you know, well, some of you know, I, and as well as others here in Crestone, Colorado, we are the Johannine Templars. And out of the Johannine Templars, we are creating in the process of developing it, the Sacred Academy of Geoenergetics, SAGE, S-A-G-E, as the acronym. And one of our main purposes is to fortify the spiritual energy and consciousness of Gaia herself, defend her, come into intimate dialogue with her, and to help her retrieve her full spectrum being for us here on the planet now. I say for us here on the planet now, as of course, if we move into the highest dimensional realm of Gaia, she's complete and whole. But in this level, it's like we're striking her at her feet. Her head still may be in the sunshine, but we're just, cutting her feet with everything we can think of. And of course, the feet root to the whole condition. So we, as in the sacred geoenergetics format, pledge ourselves to her, and not just about deforestation or pollution of the planet, which is very important. I'm not minimizing that, but we're going even deeper into what this means to us. And I'm not going to get off on all of that here because that's not what this is about. But I want to say that this is the reason the Tribelight is so important right now. It's coming forward again into my consciousness, and I wish to deliver it to you as something that's coming forward again more succinctly for planet Earth. Not that it's been buried. It's been doing its little thing all along. Maya just hasn't been looking at it that well. But if we all look at it now, we all help it. It's about to move to a new stage of its progression. I can't delineate the new stage, at least not at this time. But I will say that it is powerful and it is perfect for now in this, what Thoth is calling the hallway or the passageway that leads to the new era, which I wrote about in my article on the Bennu bird and Osiris, and also the second part of it that talks about even more about the new era. And that new era begins in 2020, that the one that Thoth is talking about. And we are now in 2019, in this passageway. And he depicted it to me as the Great Pyramid. You know, the chamber, there's a certain chamber, like the chamber of the sun, the midden chamber, those talks about the hidden chamber in the Pyramid of Giza. The one that is that translates the energies into the higher realms of our conscious spectrum. It does a lot more, but that's the brief of it. So we could see the chamber of the sun, S-O-N-S-U-N, as being the new era. We're looking at it as a demonstrative picture here. And the hallway is one of those long ascending passages, you know, even though technically the ascending passage that we know about don't go into the chamber of the sun, but maybe one does somewhere and it's sealed off. I don't know. But the picture I got in my mind when Thoth was telling me about this was a pyramid of Giza, chamber of the sun being the new era, and this ascending passageway being 2019, and the sun chamber is in 2020. So when we look now at Tribelight Station and this IBIS tribunal or whatever this is that operates this, that is in the underneath, you know, in the subterranean area underneath Potala. All of this makes more sense now, at least it does to me, than when I wrote it, because it's now so timely. The energy field that they're sending out on the planet. Think of the difference between the electromagnetic field and what was going on the planet in the airwaves and, you know, radio signals and television signals and all of that in 1980, 1981, 82, compared to now, with all the cell towers and all the, you know, all these frequencies and things going on. And now we're getting ready for G5 that could literally destroy the planet. So now, if we look at Tribelight, we look at an exquisite tool that can help us to change this arena so that we are free from ill effects and possibly free from even the technology itself that is creating these things. Now, in this video, I'm not even going to attempt to go into what that might mean, you know, get into logistics. So we can do this with Tribelight, we can do that. This is what it's going to do here. This is how it's going to work with nullifying the cell towers or the G5 or whatever. That's a huge arena. And I can't even begin to move into that right now, but it's there. I'm just telling you guys, it's there. And it's part of everything we're doing right now. Of course, we also have the pyramid, the Pymander, Thoth's Elohim computer that's operating and adjusting fields, and it's working with all of this as well. That's a whole nother topic, but you can be sure that the Pymander is interacting with the Tribelight streaming. It's all part of a giant supra-spiritual technology, meta-technology. So as bleak as the picture looks for us, with G5 coming along and all the little gazillion nano satellites that are already, according to many, and Thoth verifies, operating up there, that would just literally take over the planet, turn us all into zombies, etc., etc. Yes, that's the plan on one level, but it's not going to happen because we are going to rise up as a spiritual army of light. We're going to utilize the Tribelight Station. We're going to utilize the pyramid radius matrix field that's being created for us. We are going to utilize the Pymander computer, all of these things and more, to define us, to define our world, and to take back our spiritual heritage in a physical way. Now, I don't know how all of this is going to take place exactly. And of course, there are no guarantees in the universe. But when I say we are going to do this, I mean that we have the total and complete power to do so, aided with those who are our kindred and those machinations and spiritual properties they have put into place for us in and around the earth. And to this end, so is our Sacred Academy of Geoenergetics dedicated. How it's going to outpicture, it's going to be outpicturing in many ways within our format. On the very practical levels to the very metaphysical levels, to this highly spiritual levels, through everything. So, and of course, we're not the only stage in town. There are other people doing other great, beautiful things, and there will be more. But it all boils down to one fabulous platform of light that will be integrated and integrated and integrated into the Pyramidus Radius Matrix, which is our platform to receive and develop the consciousness and the physical stamina we need to move into this planetary ascension of LP, Light Principle 40, into the new Earth. And so the Thothic stream is informing me that there will be more about Tribelight and how we, as the new Earth, so many words in my head, as the Sacred Academy of Geoenergetics specifically, can work with Tribelight. And also how every individual on the planet can work with it. Now, as I've said in many times, many places, what I give has very distinctive language, very distinctive, details and all of this, which is great. However, Mr. John Brown out there in his back 40, milking the cows and plowing the field, he's probably tuning in on some level to all of this. And he doesn't need all these words and all of this understanding. Now, it's helpful to have it, or I wouldn't be doing it. But it's not exclusive. That's just what I want to stress here. It's not exclusive just to the people that understand what I'm saying here, or the people that understand what other channels are saying. It's good to have this information. It helps. And we're not only helping ourselves, we're helping John Brown out there in the garden, in the plowing his field, because it is a collective vibration. And the more we understand, and the more we receive through whatever medium or channel, helps those who are not really, they've got to take care of their back 40. They don't have time to go on the internet and read fancy spiritual stuff, But we can help them. They're good people. And we can help them by helping ourselves to induct ourselves into this energy field in any way possible, whether it's through Tribelight or whatever, So that's why I'm speaking this to you here. And those that you feel are ready for this information that I have here. This is why I put it out for free viewing, listening, rather than to my portal, which I ordinarily would have been doing, because it needs to be spread out there. Thoth is directing me right now to put certain talk videos out there for everyone to get if they can. So, spread the word, send the signal out, as many as you feel, from those that you feel would receive it, please send it to them. And so I guess I'm going to conclude here for now in this video. It's certainly long enough, I'm sure, but there will be more on this topic. Thank you for listening.